What's up, everybody? My name is REDRUP, and this is the It's Not a Phase podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by Julie Weir, the label director for Music for Nations, which is a subsidiary of Sony Music. We talk about how she got into the industry, her time setting up and running Visible Noise and working with Bring Me the Horizon, the transition from an indie label to a major label, what she looks for in a signing, and loads more. Before we get started, let's cover off the boring stuff. If you enjoy this episode and would like to support the podcast, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review wherever you're listening to this. We also have a Patreon, where everyone gets access to each episode a week earlier than everyone else, and a merch store too. You can also follow and reach out to me on social media. All of the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And with all of that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Julie Weir of Music for Nations. How are you doing?
I'm all right, Zach. Thank you very much. Working from home because it's Monday.
Well, nothing wrong with working from home. I do that every day of the week. So,
well, if you look around this room, there's a lot of things wrong with working from home because there's piles of books, vinyl, t-shirts everywhere. It's like a warehouse in here at the moment.
Yeah. I find myself being a bit more productive when it's working from home because I can just kind of like do stuff instead of, the time you spend traveling to and from the office and stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I quite liked working from home to a certain extent because I'd spend most of my working life traveling from North London to West London. And now, ironically, our offices have just moved. The new Sony offices are in King's Cross, which is just down the road from me, which is brilliant. And I'm very, very happy about that. But still on a Monday and a Friday, even though it only takes me 20 minutes to get to work now, on a Monday and a Friday, we just generally work from home, but we have 3 days of back-to-back meetings when we're there. Right. So I prefer being in the office, and our new office is lovely. It's got a roof terrace and everything, which is great. Yeah. And the coffee's good. But I do actually kind of like being at home because I can just get my head down and get on with stuff as opposed to answering questions. And then I can't not talk to people when I'm in the office as well. So I just talk too much if I'm in the office.
So do you quite enjoy kind of the hybrid of being at home and having like less distractions, but then when you're in the office, kind of more socializing with everyone else that's there, I guess?
Great, because I mean, the office is now about 1,000 people. So, because Sony's joined with, it's all like sort of Sony Music, and now there's publishing and the Orchard near wall, and everyone's in there. Oh, right. So it's actually really handy if you need to see someone because you can just go down 2 flights. Amazing. So instead of having to go to the other side of London when we're all disconnected, so it's worked out. It's worked out quite nicely, actually.
Well, what day was it that you kind of felt like you had an interest of getting into the music industry? What kind of was that push? Did you want to get into working into a label, or what was the initial plan?
I didn't have a Scooby, to be quite honest, when I was younger. I didn't really know, but my granddad was quite musical, and he was quite, not musical as in a like sort of conservatoire kind of way, but he could listen to a piece of music and then just play it immediately. So he was pretty spot on stuff like that, I have to say. Yeah. But I mean, I always liked that part of it all, and I like the creative part of it all. And I was always a big music fan, again, instilled into me by my granddad. But I was going to shows from like when I was about 14, 15, like left field shows, things like, I mean, it was like David Sylvian and Japan and stuff like that. Then I don't know, I just kind of wanted to work in that industry, wanted to work around it because I didn't really know what else I wanted to do because I was really good at maths, but I didn't want to be an accountant. I don't think I could be a doctor because I'm quite squeamish. So I kind of like to be a vet, but ditto squeamish. I went into music and I just it was like a pretty organic path, really. I just got into it through being at college. You know, I mean, when I was at uni, I ended up writing for like sort of magazines and taking photos and being part of the societies and stuff there. And then I finished uni. I was at Salford. Then I ended up moving to Leeds. Again, why I really love Leeds. So Manchester and Leeds are very close to my heart. And I worked in a record shop in Leeds and then ended up doing a lot of stuff with some clubs in Leeds. And I never really lost that part of it. So when I got a British Academy scholarship to do a master's, I went to London. It was almost like it was meant to be. Do you know what I mean? Because it's really what I wanted to do. And a year in London, just like sort of mucking about doing a master's in film and media was kind of what I needed to like sort of get my head around if I wanted to stay there or not. And I'm still here now. So yes, but I think I knew I wanted to work in music from when I was about 16, really. But obviously being from Cumbria, small working class town, it's all like sort of Steels and Sellafield and stuff like that. They say you want to work in music and people are like, yeah, whatever. You know, whatevs. Yeah, what are you going to do? Yeah. And then it just kind of happened.
Do you think it was kind of like, was there any kind of struggle with obviously being from the north? Because, you know, everything music related, more or less, I mean, it's getting better now, but it's mainly based within London, and unless you've kind of like got connections and stuff, you know, they've got to get like internships, and it's not cheap. Like London's not cheap.
I still have a big problem with that, actually, on the internship front, really. But yeah, I mean, I do think it was part and parcel of I'm from the north. I mean, I went from Cumbria to like Manchester to Leeds to London, so I kind of just bounced my way down the country. Yeah. But I do think that when I started doing this, it was like 1995. And that doesn't include working in a record shop for a year as well, which my parents were most disappointed in, having just done a bachelor's. But, you know.
Not the usual path, but, you know.
It was, yeah, but it was just a means to an end. I just wanted to go to Manchester and get drunk. Yeah. But then I ended up down in London. It was just, there wouldn't have been anything else that was possible in music at that time, you know. I mean, even like, so now you've even got the colleges, you've got your BIMS, and you've got like sort of your Isle of Wight colleges, and you've got, you know, you got ACM and stuff. But I mean, there was just nothing like that. There was literally, you either had to like sort of bite your lip and get on with it when I was a kid, or you just wouldn't work in music. Now there's a lot of gateways into it. There's more internships, there's more colleges, there's more advice, there's more encouragement to be in the industry, I think, now.
100%. Yeah, and you've got all these, like you say, things like BIM and all these other kind of opportunities like people can search for online. And I think that's why when I went to university, I went to Staffordshire. I did music journalism there.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't until I went there where I kind of learned that there's other facets of the music industry that are kind of like behind the scenes that, you know, you never even consider, oh, that's a way of getting into the industry.
Yeah, nobody ever tells you. And I mean, I do think there are more things coming through there, because there's things like, there's like the Cato Academy that teach people how to like work in the live environment as well. And I do think there needs to be a lot more open dialogue about that. I think Taliad Education are quite good at doing that as well, because they deal across people who want to work in business and management as well. Because, I mean, when I was a kid, the music industry was like, you're either at a label or you're an artist, and nobody tells you any different.
Yeah,
and I'm not an artist, believe me. Unless
you kind of like look into it, how would you know? Because like I say, these roles are kind of behind the scenes. They're not advertised. You're not seeing them on the stage like when you go to your local venue and see a band.
No, absolutely. And I mean, even when you do that, it's all really just about the artist.
So when it came to your ventures into working in labels, was it Cacophonous Records? Was that your first kind of step into label territory?
In the label side, yeah. I mean, when I was working at Nail Records in Leeds, I had I spoke to a lot of people at Labels Direct. Right. I mean, we're talking about labels like E-Rake and Peaceville and stuff like that at the time. They were great, and who are still friends now. Yeah. But I think Cacophonous was really my first foray into it. But I actually went into the company as a merchandising manager and was offered to go into the label management part of it on. I mean, I'll be honest, Cacophonous was more of like a stepping stone for me, because it was mainly, that was a lot of admin and stuff. I mean, I work with Cradle of Filth and Dimmer Borgir, Balsagoth, Gehenna, people like that, which is great, but it's not really my personal taste. And being a young lass in the industry at that point with bands like that was really quite challenging. I mean, I have to say, Balsagoth were absolutely lovely and still one of my favourite battle metal bands, if there's more than one, that are still around. But it just wasn't musically my cup of tea. So I set up Visible Noise soon after that. Well, not soon after that. That was like 1998. So yeah, about 3 years after that. Okay. Just to work with British acts that were more my cup of tea, really, just like sort of alternative rock, metal, not just black metal, which can be quite challenging as a genre, whatever you think. In general, yeah.
Do you feel like you picked up quite a lot of skills in those 3 years that if you didn't have those skills to hand, you wouldn't have been able to set up Visible Noise?
Absolutely. And I think going through the independent kind of scheme of things, I learned so much more than a lot of people who do work at major labels. And that's through no fault of their own. But I mean, I had to be everything to everyone. You know, I mean, I did contracts, I commissioned artwork, I did videos, I was booking shows, I was doing the merch, I was dealing with distributors, I was going out on the road with people. And I had to do that just all off my own bat. It was literally only me, really, when I did Visible Noise. So it was hard work. And I mean, I was lucky I did it when I was in my 20s, really, because I just wouldn't have the energy now. And also with the advent of like sort of digital distribution and also loads of digital platforms, anybody who runs an independent now, I absolutely doff my cap to them, because it is hard and it changes every day. And there's so much you've got to learn. There's so much you've got to be aware of. And I mean, it's like from metadata to digital advertising, through how to advertise on platforms, through how to pitch to platforms. It's just, I don't know how people do it. I really don't. And I mean, I did it, but I struggled then. Yeah. And I mean, anybody who's doing it now on literally a skeleton staff is an absolute superhero to me now.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just consider the social media promotion like aspect of it, like back then it was mainly MySpace, but now it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever else pops up,
YouTube, everything. And you've got to be present everywhere. And I mean, obviously you'll have seen that, like the huge artist backlash now. I mean, we try and encourage our artists to do as much as possible in those spaces. But honestly, not all artists are suited to TikTok.
Yeah.
Not all artists are suited to Facebook, not all artists are suited to Instagram. And I mean, it's kind of pick your battles really on stuff like that. And I mean, if you force somebody to do something, I mean, effectively, it's just like having like a stroppy teenager. It's just people are going to rebel. They're not going to want to do it. And you're going to end up with a really substandard product or like sort of content or assets. It's just not really going to work.
Yeah.
So I understand people protesting against it as well. And I can't blame them.
And it's not only that, isn't it? Because you've got to do like consistency as well. Like if you just post one or two things on one channel and then that's kind of radio silence, then you have fans being like, what, this band broke up? Are they not doing anything anymore? And it's like,
yeah. Well, if you're not present 100% of the time, if you're not doing TikToks like once a day or something like that, it's just, and all these kids who now come on and say, well, what do you want to be? And they're like, they want to be an influencer. And I'm like, you don't just get free shit,
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of work. And I mean, the people who are like really at the high end of that, they've literally grown up in public. And I don't really know how I would feel about that either.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be in the public eye all the time. Imagine you're popping out to Tesco in your flip-flops, a pair of cut-offs and a really bad metal t-shirt, looking like death. And like people are like, oh, people taking photos of you looking like sort of something that's been dragged through a hedge. No, yeah. I look like that all the time. I don't need that.
So you don't need to take a photo of me just when I'm, buying some cornflakes or whatever.
No, just leave me alone. I don't want people to know my personal cereal preferences.
Well, you kind of touched on it there. Like a lot of people don't quite realize the full facets of a label. They just think, you sign a band, you get their record, you push it out there. But, there's so many functions like A&R, marketing, licensing, social media management, stuff like that. Do you feel there are any aspects of running a functioning label that people are kind of like taken aback by when you say like, oh, this is kind of like part of the job?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it depends what kind of label or whatever you want to be in or what you're actually doing. But my approach to everything has always been be aware of everything and learn about everything. And I kind of tell that to everybody that, because funnily enough, I've just been up at the Sage actually in Newcastle doing I do a thing called Summer Studios every year.
Right.
This is like, I did like sort of 12 artists this year. And this is a really hotly debated topic because there's parts of it that people are like, but why should we do that? And it's like, this is what nobody really tells you. This is where you've got to think about things. This is where you've got to really realise that your online presence is basically your shop window. And if you're not there, people get, and I mean, obviously attention is like that now. And if you're not there all of the time, people will just find somewhere else to go. Yeah. And another band like, it's just ridiculous.
I've heard some people consider like Instagram is the new business card. Like people don't ask for your business card anymore. They say, oh, what's your Instagram profile handle and stuff like that, which, is crazy to think that that's kind of like, that's the way that the world is now.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So if someone does want to kind of, like we said, there's loads of facets to a label and the more things the more multi-skilled you are, the better. What kind of advice would you give to someone who says they would be interested in working for a label in any capacity?
Be human. I think it's the first thing that everyone forgets because the music industry it's a people industry.
Yeah. And
you've got to be, I think everyone's found it hard after lockdown is actually having a conversation with people face to face, not through, like, remember the days when people used to go to the pub and have a pint? Remember them? And I mean, it's being able to do that and it's be like sort of be an authentic version of yourself, be memorable, I think is the main thing. I mean, that's just the first jump off point. I mean, anything else, I would say that like sort of the online world is just, it's going to take over everything anyway. So it's all fantastic and wanting to say like, I really want to work in production and things, which we do as well. And I love it because I like stuff. If you can see inside this room, you understand how much I like stuff. But I mean, that it's a fantastic thing, but it's also the digital world is taken over from absolutely everything now. The digital world is where everything's going to end. So, I mean, be aware of how to work with Spotify, what like Spotify for Artists does, pitching tools. Be aware of what other people do. Be aware of like sort of the best websites. What's Pitchfork done this week? What are Kerrang doing? What are the new features that they use? What are the regular features? Because everybody's moved online as well after that.
Yeah, that's true.
Digital marketing, digital advertising are definitely the things that you need to be aware of and you need to be strong in.
Yeah.
We have people who do it at our place. And I mean, Tom, who works with me, is an absolutely fantastic digital marketer because he gets his head into it and he loves a stat. I come from a very different and creative background, but he's absolutely brilliant at what he does. And it makes such a difference. If you manage to find your audiences and build audiences, it's so important. And also give the fans what they want. The other thing, and because working in the arena that I work in, like rock and alternative, fans are very vocal about what they want. So it's
definitely
pretty to do that most of the time. But if you do happen to make that tiny cock up and don't give people what they want, I tell you what, you remember it for years and years and years and years and years and years. Literally, if you cock something up like that.
Yeah, I think another one is like, don't underestimate kind of like how tight knit the networking is, and just generally be nice because X person knows Y person, and that's going to affect you further down the line.
Absolutely. And having a great reputation like that is really good. Because, I mean, again, you've been doing this quite a long time now as well, because your name's been around for years. And it's just actually knowing who the people are and who the staunch individuals are that are trustworthy, honest, reliable, get shit done is the main thing. Because there's a lot of people in the music industry who talk a talk and just never actually come through. And that's my biggest hate, well, alongside arrogance. But people who say they're going to do something and don't do it, because it winds me up, because it's not my personal way of operating, that's just me venting there. But if you say you're going to do something, do it. Why tit about? It's just why say you're going to do it and just not do it? Don't say anything.
Yeah, some people just say it because it's what you want to hear, and it's just kind of like, well, now you're wasting my time. So
that's infuriating on so many levels.
Yeah,
and it just makes me not want to work with the people. And I mean, I suppose if there's any other piece of advice there is like, just work hard for your artists if you want to work in a label, and give the artists what they need. Because at the end of the day, I mean, success is effectively on them, really.
Yeah.
They create the art, they create the artwork, they create the music, they do the live shows. All we do is amplify that message. We can help shape the message, but at the end of the day, it's still got to be the artist's vision to work. And if an artist doesn't have a vision, that's alarm bells as well. If anybody ever says, what should we have as the album artwork? I'm like, bye. What?
They should have some kind of steer on it.
Yeah, exactly. People need to know what their own sense of aesthetic messaging is. They need to know who they are. And I think that is a huge problem now, is that there's so many things going on that people are scared of being authentically them.
Yeah.
It's almost like 10% them, 5% someone else, 5% that no one's ever heard of. Fair play. I would bow down to that one anyway. But it's just, don't be afraid of being yourself.
I think it's, especially in the kind of genres like rock and metal and stuff, as like presentation and aesthetics is huge. Like look at like Slipknot, for example. Like they wear masks and jump around in boiler suits, and then you've got like a monomorph that you work with. Their whole thing is the whole Viking aesthetic. It's just that's the way it is. Presentation's everything.
Storytelling is what
imagine
it is.
If they came up to you and like, oh, I don't know what we want to do for the album artwork. It's like,
think about wearing cowboy boots.
Yeah.
No.
So you joined Music for Nations as the label head. Was it 2016?
Yep, that's right.
And then, and are you now the director? Is that right? Just a few months ago?
Just words in it.
Say, what's the difference between a director and a label head?
You tell me, really. I get better seats on a flight, I think. That's about it.
That's a perk. That's a decent perk.
Not that I've been anywhere since I've been promoted, but there you go.
So what's kind of like the day-to-day general life of a director at Music for Nations?
I mean, in all honesty, I don't really say anything's any different to anybody else on my team, because we all muck in and we all get stuff done.
Right.
And I think if you're not prepared to do something that you're asking someone else to do, you shouldn't be in the position you're in, quite frankly. But I mean, we do everything from contract negotiation through to obviously meeting the artists and managers, through to artwork commissioning, video commissioning, literally putting together marketing plans, dealing with styling, dealing with everything. I mean, to be really honest, we do work slightly differently to like a traditional major, because we're still pretty all-encompassing in what we do, because we still like sort of participate in live and help our artists with live. If we work with someone who doesn't have a manager and they want a manager, we'll try and get them that. And same thing goes for agents as well. Right. So there's not really anything we don't do.
It's all in-house, basically.
Well, we work with PR people actually. And I mean, we don't work with PR people in-house.
Right.
Because I think for what we're doing, it would be a disservice to the artists, because not everybody can promote and work with a particular genre of people. We do build teams around people so that, like, you know, we'll get radio, PR, and like sort of regional PR and radio as well if we need it. So that's specific to that artist, not just the radio guy.
Yeah.
Sometimes at the 10 that just won't work. You know, somebody's got to be pretty special to work Tool's radio campaign.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. They're quite a unique band. Like, you know, with the whole kind of them going on Spotify was like such a big deal because of just the way that their music is. It's like one fluid piece of art that you need to listen to from start to finish.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think they made their peace with that when they saw what they were missing revenue-wise, to be really honest. And I mean, we work with Porcupine Tree, and they've had their own challenges with digital because they feel the same. They feel that when they produce a record, it's a body of work that should be listened to in order. And I subscribe to that. I like it. But then again, I'm also not outside cherry picking tracks that I like for my own personal playlist when I'm like sort of pootling on my way to Leeds or something.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of future, isn't it? Like playlisting. And that's why you kind of have this new culture of singles, as opposed to albums. Not that albums are dying out, but I guess they're becoming less prominent, I guess.
It depends on the genre, to be really honest. But I think one thing that we've seen in rock and alternative is people releasing EPs and more frequently. Because, I mean, it used to be that you write album, record album, release album, and it's like a 3-year cycle. Now people can't afford to go away for that long because, again, like I was saying before, if you're not permanently present, you'll be replaced. So the idea of releasing 5 or 6 tracks, you know, doing 3 lead tracks and then making it into body of work, it's kind of the best of both worlds. And in all honesty, people move and change so much as well. So, I mean, when you've got an album artwork and a load of promo photos that have to last for like even like 18 months now, it's quite hard because bands change and develop and evolve. So actually doing like sort of 5-6 track EPs and then moving forward from that really does work. And we did it with Hot Milk. We've done 2 EPs. One of them just came out on Friday. Yeah. And we've done that with Witch Fever as well before their album drops in October. Yeah. So it has worked. And actually with Bury Tomorrow, we released 2 standalone tracks as well. So it's almost like keeping people interested, and for want of a better word, keeping the algorithms active as well, from a very cynical side of it all. Yeah.
Well, it's just like the attention span of people, isn't it? Like they just want more and more and more now. Like I saw, do you know the band Static Dress? Yeah. So they only put like an album out 3 or 4 months ago, and I saw someone asking on their Twitter or Instagram or something saying, when's new music coming out? When is more music coming out? And
they were like, brick. You know what I mean?
In a year, we put out 2 EPs, 4 or 5 singles on an album. How much more do you want?
I know, but again, it's that kind of, well, it's not ADHD, is it? Because they're very engaged. But it's just they expect more and more and more. But if you flood a market, the art loses its value as well. Yeah. That's part and parcel of it. It's almost like drip feeding something. It's the way it used to work. Because remember when people release like sort of TV series and it used to literally be once a week.
And you have to wait the whole week.
Yeah, it's like that. And now everybody just expects the deluge. And the problem that you've got with that now is when you release a full album, if the entire album's out, the DSPs kind of not lose interest, but they're less engaged with it because it's all there. You know, there's nothing new. There's nothing to keep pushing people back to stuff. So that's where we have to step in and keep people interested in the artist, because the DSPs just let you get on with it then, really.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, like if you leave it, you know, if you're not continuous, then for some reason fans think, oh, well, they've not done anything for 6 months, so have they broke up? Are they even a thing anymore?
Yeah, exactly. But that's also part and parcel of if you're sitting on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or whatever, and I mean, I have loads of notifications set up for my artists, which is incredibly annoying. I should turn them off. It's really prolific. It's like bing, 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 bing. But you've got to be constantly active. It's like continually digitally prodding somewhat.
So before you went over to Music for Nations, like you mentioned it before, you set up Visible Noise. What is it that made you want to set up your own label? Stupidity, bloody mindedness. I don't know. I don't think I could do it now, and not just because I'm older, but I just don't think the climate would allow me to do so. I mean, and again, this is why I doff my cap to like sort of people who are actually out there at the coalface just releasing independent music. But I wanted to do it basically because at the time
it was all American artists, and it's people I'm huge fans of, you know. But I wanted to do it so that we got some really good British acts out there, and obviously we signed Bring Me the Horizon early doors. We worked with Bullet for My Valentine. We signed those guys as well, and obviously notoriety wise, we signed Lost Prophets to a huge commercial success before everything went horrendously belly up on that front.
Yeah.
But it's stuff that we worked in. I'm really proud of. I mean, we worked with The Plight, we worked with Your Demise, we worked with The Legacy. So, and again, there's The Legacy and The Plight were both from Leeds because of my links with Leeds and the hardcore scene there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's stuff that I really want to keep on doing and just supporting young UK acts. Because the bonus with the UK is it's so respected musically. And obviously language-wise, it's universal. So it really does make a hell of a lot of impact. You know, I mean, we work with a lot of international labels through the Sony system anyway. And it's a lot of times we've been asked to work with like sort of with German acts and French acts. And I mean, apart from Rammstein, you know, it's very, very difficult for a native speaking German band to have any success. You know, and it's so limiting. So I mean, where we are with the UK scene, and I love Static Dress actually, but where we are with stuff like that is I am seeing great scenes come from tiny towns. Leeds has always had a great music scene. I lived there for years. Manchester's fantastic. I work with Hot Milk and Witch Fever, who are both from Manchester. Yeah. I love the town and I love the creative environment. And I just really, really enjoy going back there and seeing things change and develop. Manchester music scene's always been insane, but I mean, it's gone through, I mean, with things like the White Hotel and stuff, it's really, really left field. And it's really like sort of LGBTQ focused as well. It's really, really broad and really inclusive.
So what did you kind of like need in advance to kind of like set up the label? Because, you know, I know you said that you did most of what was needed, but did you bring on anyone on like a team at any stage, or was it you from the very beginning? Or
me from the very beginning, Visible Noise, because I mean, I was lucky because my boss at the time, Alan, who actually has just been messaging me today, who's actually a film producer now, he runs a company called Wild Bunch, but he's always been heavily entrenched in music. He was a photographer in the 70s. He worked with Iggy Pop and The Clash and Motorhead and everything like that. He worked for NME. But he could see that I wasn't really enjoying working with Cacophonous. I mean, I'm not hating it, but it's not really my thing.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to engage with something else. So he just said, well, look, go off and set up a label that you want to do and we'll go from there. So I'd set it up. I'd started like sort of speaking to different artists, started signing artists. And I set up a thing called Subverse. I don't know if you know about this, but it was before All Ages stuff really existed. It was an all ages rock club that was in Australia when our offices was in Ladbroke Grove. So I was using that, putting really young, developing British acts on, and then like signing some of them from it. I mean, we had Bring Me play that, we had Bullet, we had Skin Dread, we had Enter Shikari, we've had all kinds of people play it. And then to like sort of a load of like 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids at the Underworld on like sort of a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. It was insane. Absolutely insane. Sorry, it moved to the Underworld. It started at Subterranean. But again, at that point, I was kind of like, I want kids to understand this kind of music. And it doesn't mean that just because you're a kid, you've got to go and listen to, I don't know, the Spice Girls or Little Mix or something like that. And it was completely life-changing. Actually, the biggest, most hilarious thing was when you used to get like all of the mums and dads come in, because we used to have it on 2 floors. Downstairs, kids, upstairs, sofas, pints, papers.
Right.
Everyone's happy as Larry, so they get 3 or 4 hours themselves chatting to the mates. But it's a brilliant A&R tool, and it was just really good for cultural stuff, really. But I mean, as opposed to like sort of setting everything else up, Visible Noise went through the same structure as Cacophonous did at the time. So I was very lucky that I had a backer, which was Alan at the time, to do it. Backing's one thing, and then it's just like the deluge of work, because I was running Cacophonous at the same time as Visible Noise as well. So literally for about the first 5-6 years, I just had no life.
I was going to say, you barely any time to breathe, and I might do anything else.
No, exactly. And I've still got that kind of work ethic now, much to my other half's chagrin, really. But I really believe in it. But I started off running it, and then he made me a company director. So then I owned the company, which is great. But that exists as a back catalogue entity really now, because I think when the stuff with Lost Profits happened, it kind of, I don't know, it scared me a bit, to be quite honest. And it just made me just like sort of, I don't know, rethink about what I wanted to do. And I'd been asked to go in at Sony a couple of times previously, and they'd asked me again, and this time I said yes. And I haven't looked back, to be quite honest. But I mean, I still like sort of say that with like sort of a very big underline, that says, if I hadn't done what I'd done at the time, I really wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing, because I wouldn't have anywhere near the knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, my like sort of contacts book is like sort of worldwide, and he's through labels, publishers, sync, brands, managers, live, festival. You know, I mean, it's across every single part of the industry. And I think if you go in at a certain level at a major, you end up in that silo. And again, that's through no fault of anyone else's, but departmentally, you get a job and you sit inside that kind of silo because somebody else is doing another part of it.
Yeah.
And I'm really nosy, so it kind of works really well for me like that, to know everything that's going on.
Yeah. Curiosity, that's helped you out then.
Absolutely. Well, curiosity and literally a hunger for knowledge.
Yeah.
And that was one of the other reasons that the Sony thing came up, because when you do run your own company, and I mean, it was basically me, and then literally I'd brought on somebody to help me out, which was mainly doing PR. And I mean, I've had great people work with me, but it was still only me and one other person. So it's just kind of, and at that point, I'd stopped learning. I was busy just like keeping everything afloat and making sure everyone was okay and just like getting shit done.
Right.
So it was just like existing on a level. So going in at Sony has allowed me to learn a lot more. And again, the digital marketing part is like the science behind it. It kind of blows my mind slightly. And we have people who do insights as well, which is so valuable. Not that I'm a fan of A&R by like statistic and numbers, but I mean, getting insights on certain things is like, again, if you're an indie, you don't have the manpower or the knowledge or the departments or anything to do this, and the stuff that we get delivered to us is outstanding and helpful as well.
Yeah. I mean, when you're doing an indie, there's only so much you can do in a day with so little manpower and so little like kind of finances, I suppose.
Yeah. But you do find now that being at Sony is like, if you want somebody to do something, there's a note added onto everything. You do it, and I'm like, hold on, I'm sure it didn't cost that much like 6 months ago.
Was there any kind of, I don't want to say regret, but any kind of sad feelings when you kind of like leaving Visible Noise? Because that's kind of something you've built up from the ground up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to this day, December 2000, I think it was 2012, and I got the phone call from Lost Profits Management about what was going on. It was just, I just didn't, it really upset me, and it really shook me, to be quite honest. And I think, I mean, I'm still like sort of a director of Visible Noise now. It still exists, you know, but it just doesn't get worked or anything. And we sold off some catalogue and things like that. But I suppose, I don't think I've got any regrets at all, because I built something. It was brilliant for like sort of 10 years, you know. And it's just that the times changed, because I mean, when I set it up, it was starting to come into like the new metal kind of time. It was like new metal, hardcore, post-hardcore, and it's all completely up my street. But I think there's a different movement now, and I think the movement therein is more art. It's more arty as opposed to just straight down music. People don't just sit in music anymore. They sit inside music. They sit inside fashion, theatre, books, art, you know, and I kind of love the fact that we can still work in those realms. So in answer to the very rambly question like that I've just given you, is I don't have any regrets per se. And in fact, I have no regrets in the fact that I spent my time doing everything, that learning all that stuff myself. I suppose it would be nice if that hadn't happened, because if that hadn't happened, maybe I wouldn't have chose to jump and go to Sony. I don't know. I can't answer that question. But I've worked with Sony for a long time anyway, and I enjoy it. I like it. We get left alone. They trust us to do what we need to do, and we're very much encouraged and very much supported. So I think that's the best of both worlds for me. I mean, I've come through a scenario where I was my own boss, and I was just allowed to like sort of say yes, no, whatever. And I mean, to be honest, unless that somebody's like asking for like sort of 100 grand, you know, I mean, I don't really have to ask permission.
Yeah.
I just left to do it because they trust us and they know we're going to make the right decisions. Because I suppose the benefit of coming from an independent background into a major is that I'm still quite thrifty and I know what stuff costs, and I haven't got like one of those guns that like sort of fire dollars into the audience or anything, you know, and I've still never really been like that. And I think some people who I do work with are like, how on earth have you managed to get it for that price? And I'm like, well, that's what it costs. And then like, does it? And I'm like, yeah.
That's the thing, like if you're kind of like come from a background where you've had to kind of adapt and do workarounds and stuff. Whereas if you go to a major, and I'm not saying that this is the case like where you are, but some like bigger corporations are kind of like, this is the way it's always been done. This is the way it's done. And you kind of, I don't know, shake things up a little bit.
but I mean, there's an element of that. But I think because we're very specialist in what we do, people are just like, oh, you know what you're doing. Not broke, don't fix it. Absolutely. You just get on with it. Absolutely fine. And it's great. And we've had great successes with that. As I say, we had a number 4 album with Tool on an 80 quid retail, ridiculous box with a TV screen in it. Still to this day, it blows my mind. You know, I mean, we had a number 2 album with Porcupine Tree, which is a band who haven't released anything for 13 years. And I mean, that was held off number 1 by Harry Bloody Styles, which is another Sony artist. Take a week off, mate. That's all I'm saying. Come on, Harry. Who's still buying that record? Come on. You know, and I mean, and even with Bury Tomorrow, well, we've been working with those guys. I mean, we had a number 2 in Germany. We had a top 10 the last time round with Cannibal. And that's with a metalcore act, you know, and when there's a new album, the ambition will be like sort of top 3 for that as well. So, I mean, we get left alone. I think there's a saying, and it was actually by Neil, who actually set up Cacophonous, or Nihil. That's his real name. Well, it's his stage name, I suppose you call it. But it's Latin, and it's odorant demetuant. And it's basically let them hate as long as they fear. And I thought it was the best thing out. It's so black metal. It's so
that is very black metal.
But it's totally true, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't like it. Oh, it's not there. And it's because people don't understand it. People don't want to like sort of engage with it. But then when you're working with a band like Witch Fever, for instance, who are so inclusive, so fantastically funny, so stylish, so intelligent, so outspoken, everything, we're working towards that as it does fit into let them hate as long as they fear, because they're all like, God, they're fucking loud. They're just angry. And it's like, yeah, but that's for a reason.
Yeah.
So I suppose for us, it's storytelling and education with certain artists as well.
I suppose, obviously, with your time doing Visible Noise, like you mentioned before, you took on Bring Me the Horizon and Bullet for My Valentine in their early stages. And now look at those 2 bands, like Bring Me, one of the biggest rock bands in the world. Like they've got their own festival in Malta. How does it kind of feel like knowing you kind of gave those kind of acts that are now huge, their kind of first steps towards the stardom that they now have?
I'm very proud, actually, to be quite honest. I mean, probably more so Bring Me, because when we started working with them, everybody was like, what the hell is this? It just sounds like somebody scopping a biscuit tin of stones downstairs or something.
Well, they got a load of hate at the start, didn't they? When they went on tour with Killswitch.
Absolutely. They had so much grief. And I remember seeing them actually supporting Killswitch in Manchester. I went up to see them, and it was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen. But Ollie dealt with it so well, because he's basically like, you're paying to be here. I'm being paid to be here, you know? So it's like kind of how to rile a Killswitch crowd, though. That was like, oh, God, get him off the stage. I mean, that for me it was a hard time, that, because Ollie went through quite a lot of challenges while we were working with him. And I still knew that he was very much of a unicorn of a person, really. Yeah. And I mean, we did the first 3 albums and the EP, and he's continually thinking, he never stops. And he's got this thing about him where people used to think he was really arrogant, but he's not. He's actually painfully shy until he knows people. And the one thing that the band used to do was just close ranks all of the time, because they're like a gang. And I mean, it's a brilliant thing. But when you're a label and you're trying to get stuff across the board, and when it's only me specifically, when I'm trying to tour support them in Russia and the States while they're doing Warped and all kinds of things, it was really hard. But that was a really, really, really steep learning curve on so many levels, because that went really quickly. And the whole advent of MySpace, when they were just the biggest band on MySpace, it was just absolute madness. And again, it goes back to me saying that bands don't just sit in their lanes anymore. I mean, Ollie's like, what? They've got the Temple of Fun. You know, he's got their own venue and restaurant. He's got Drop Dead, which has always been there. You know, they're clever and continually evolving, which I also think is something that's really important. Bowie did it. Bring Me have done it. They've changed and like sort of given themselves a glow up on every record, and they're not scared. A lot of people get into like a rut, and I think this is a festival headliner conversation, really, but festival headliners, because of the huge bands, people keep on wheeling out like your Iron Maidens and your Kisses and your Guns N' Roses. And fine, yeah, I've seen them all 100 times now. But people are scared of anything that's new coming through, and it's how you give people that chance. And that's the odorant demetuant thing. Yeah. You know, I want to see Witch Fever playing Glastonbury. I want to see Witch Fever playing main stage at Download, because they can. They're adaptable. They're malleable. You know, they're doing Reading and Leeds. So it's going to be a really interesting time for them, I think, as well.
Yeah, especially like with the age it is now, like, things are far more inclusive and, like you say, more encompassing of all like the art and direction of stuff as well. I think there's still some ways to go, but like, rock and metal is getting more accepting. You don't always have the guy that comes up and says, name 3 songs of that band on your t-shirt. It's just so annoying.
Yeah, but I nearly did that myself the other day to somebody who was wearing a Nirvana t-shirt, and I was like, "That's you still that from Primark," and it annoys me. But you know what? What are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
They're good t-shirts. It's better than them walking down wearing I don't know. I feel like I'm assassinating the pop world here, like an Ed Sheeran t-shirt or something. that would offend me more.
Yeah. Well, Bring Me worked with Ed Sheeran, so...
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was absolute madness at the Brits. That was absolutely crazy.
When worlds collide, I guess. How did you kind of find the transition from working from an indie to a major? Like, was there much of a change initially? Was it kind of like a shock to the system?
Actually, no. And this is also the thing, because when I got offered a job there years ago, people are like, "Oh, you've been indie, you can't do this. You'll go in there and they'll just eat you alive." And I'm like, "Will they? Because everybody I know there's dead nice."
Yeah.
And I already work with them on Lost Profits and Bullet. So I was just like, really? Is it? I don't know. But I suppose the one thing that I'm still not slightly used to is just being able to say yes 100%, because at the end of the day we still need legal paperwork and stuff like that, and I used to, for want of a better word, wing it, as everybody does, but now everything's got to be like sort of goes through like sort of processes and things like that, which means ultimately you're protected,
right?
which is a positive thing. But I suppose not being able to feel like you're 100% in control was a little bit of it felt like my wings had been clipped a little bit initially.
Especially coming from like Visible Noise, where you were the boss.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I don't mind it, to be quite honest, because I mean, I've got a load of other people I can lean on for different matters. I've got a load of other strengths there. I've got, and again, I would say 95% freedom, so I cannot complain or anything. And the support that we get inside the building is insane. Even as the little guys, we're still like a valid frontline entity to all of the other departments, like the fourth floor creative group, who we work with incredibly closely, like the digital marketing teams, there's so much knowledge in that building. It's absolutely terrifying. But so I think the answer there is there's a hell of a lot more upsides than there is downsides. And there's always toilet roll and the coffee's good.
Which you don't really get in offices. So, so there's quite a lot of big names, isn't there? Like you've got Kill Switch, you've got Amon Amarth, like I say, Bury Tomorrow as well. Yeah. But then you've got the emerging acts that you've mentioned as well, like Hot Milk.
Exactly. And that's Fever, what I like. Blanket. That's what I really like. I mean, if you're working with an act like Kill Switch or working with an act like Amon Amarth, and I mean, we just did one record. I don't know if we're going to get another record. I know the new Amon Amarth just come out on Metal Blade.
Yeah.
Because that was a collaboration with Germany. But I mean, when you work with an artist like that, you don't really get a terrible lot of say, because it's come through like an international partner, and you get your assets delivered, and you just market it to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Which is great, but it's not what I really enjoy doing, because it's basically, finished product, get on with it, sell units, which is obviously it's part of the industry, but I just don't really like not having a relationship with the artist, not really speaking to them, not knowing about them, not knowing, do they like chocolate? Do they cook? Do they wear trainers? Do they enjoy gardening? Are they a foodie? All this kind of stuff. And I think stuff like that's really valid as part of the storytelling. And also, you work with these people for like a year to 18 months on a project, and you speak to them more times than you can shake a stick at. So you might as well know about their personal lives instead of talking about work, which is just boring in itself, right? Bores me. I bore myself to tears talking about work all the time. But so I think that's really important.
And making us just human connections, like you said before, be human.
Like I said, be a human being, because I think people, and I don't know if it is COVID or just society in general, people just don't seem to be able to do it anymore. I mean, possibly mobile phones have changed it, because people just communicate on WhatsApp or whatever, or people have got like the screen in between them, so that helps somewhat. But I don't know, it's just not for me. I've always been a people person, although I did find, like, literally going back to shows right after COVID, I wasn't that much of a people person initially. It's a bit like, why are these people so close to me?
Yeah.
They're breathing on me at the bar. It's terrible.
6 feet away.
Yeah, get away. Terrible.
So when it comes, like you say, you've got a few newer acts coming up, like Witch Fever, Hot Milk, Blanket. When it comes to signing an act, what is it that you kind of look for What does a band kind of like need to do and deliver beforehand before that kind of conversation can even happen?
A great work ethic, because we'll work as hard as the band will. And I think one thing that I've seen recently with a lot of artists is that as soon as the band gets signed, they kind of go, whoa, well, that's it then, it's over to you. And it's like, oh no, this is merely the beginning.
It's just a partnership.
Very long road. Yeah, it's a partnership. And that's exactly what we say.
Yeah.
So I would say be human again. But I would also say have a great, strong sense of aesthetic, be fearless, ask loads of questions, and create great art. You know, I mean, everybody that comes to us, I mean, funnily enough, I've just sent an email back to a manager who sent me an artist that is so unsuitable for the label, it just pisses me off. And it's just like, you don't, just because we're working a major, it doesn't mean that we just sign pop acts, you know. So yeah. I think you should really research who you're sending stuff to, because the fact that you're sending us this just shows that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, look at the artists that we signed, you haven't even looked. So I mean, that kind of stuff pisses me off, really.
It's kind of like, how invested is he in the band if he's done that?
Not remotely, because he doesn't know what the band's, and it was a real like sort of pop act as well,
right?
And not a good one in any way. I mean, I'm not offended by pop in any way. I listen to a lot of it.
Yeah,
but it's just like, Jesus Christ, you're A&R, if you need to A&R it better, and also you need to do your research better, and that is symptomatic of just accessibility online. Point, click, send, it's done. I think if you'd had to make a package together and actually send it out, and that cost him like a fair few quids, you know, to send stuff off to people, maybe he would do his research better and he would look after his artist better.
Back in the day when that was a regular thing, sending out press packs in the post.
I've got some great stuff in the post, though. I've had some really fascinating like packages from people, brilliant. And I love that, and I still like it now.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, if somebody cares enough to put something together that's actually really interesting, it makes me look twice as well. Yeah. As opposed to somebody saying, you know, dear James, number one, I'm a woman and I'm called Julie. You know, come on, people.
And like copy and paste email.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're on my shit list because you just lazy.
Yeah. It's even like even if they get your name right, but you can tell like the font's completely different, so you can tell they've just like copied and pasted and just changed the name.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like, come on. Yeah. How long does it take? Like literally seconds, milliseconds to swap something up. It's like, really? You expect me to take the time out to listen to it and read it? You could at least get shit right.
Yeah, that's true. So when it comes to like putting out a record for one of your artists, what's kind of like the general time frame between them giving you the finished product to it going out? I guess obviously it varies a little bit, but
can depend. I mean, the biggest driver of like sort of timelines at the moment is vinyl turnaround.
Yeah, well, that's global, isn't it? Really,
that is global. Thanks, Adele.
Yeah,
the supply chain there. But that's one thing. But then there's also, I suppose, when the artist wants it out themselves. I mean, everybody will be like, oh, can we release it this week? No, what's wrong with you? So, I mean, I would say ideally from receipt of masters through to like sort of getting it out, it would be 6 to 8 months, ideally. But vinyl turnarounds can be about 9. I like to do a 6-month pre-order if we can, because you can activate a fan base. You can keep people, it's almost like that, keeping people fed. It's almost like watching a big sunflower. You know, just keeping it topped up.
So, you know, with the traditional rollout of an album campaign, obviously the album comes out and around that time the artist goes out on tour to promote the album, and you know that kind of wasn't an option when COVID was rife.
That was horrendous. Yeah, that was awful.
How did you kind of have to adapt, you know, your release campaigns around that time?
What did we do? We did actually Bury Tomorrow. Cannibal came out during that. And we had shows booked and everything. You know, we were doing shows with like Crash in Leeds. We were doing stuff with like sort of Banquet. We were doing loads of stuff. And actually, the shows got played not that long ago, but we still wanted to honour them because people had bought tickets and people really care. So, I mean, we tried doing, for a band like Bury Tomorrow, that kind of fatigue of people plinky plonking on a chair in the living room and stuff. I hated it, and that just never really fitted them. Yeah. So I mean, we just tried to do things differently and just tried to keep things communicated. Again, certain artists could suit it. I mean, Hot Milk did a live stream. Witch Fever did a couple of live streams, but they did live streams that are just like lo-fi live streams from their rehearsal rooms. And that's not really an option with Bury Tomorrow because you don't really get that anger and energy if you do something like that. Plus, the cost alone of it in setting the band up wouldn't really have worked out. And plus, the technology I wasn't really trusting.
Right.
Particularly at that point, streaming technology was bloody awful because everybody's online.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work, does it?
Did you take any of those kind of workarounds you had to do around that time and you kind of applied that to this, I guess, increasingly post-COVID world, or?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think that the only thing that we've really applied is hybrid working for people at the label.
Right.
I think everything else, there is a need to be together. There is a need for collective experience. There's a need for tribalism around music. And that shared experience and the energy and belonging to something is really important still. And we've seen stuff like that. We work with a band called Wardruna, and that we also released during lockdown, which is a bloody nightmare. But they actually did manage to do some successful live streams because their management are incredibly savvy and they got quite a decent bit of funding and they were charging for the live streams.
Right.
And that actually did work. But they have got more of an esoteric lane, shall we say. So it's like a lot of it's like acoustic and folky with like a bit of a heavier end, I suppose. But with Bury Tomorrow, I wouldn't want to do something like that. I mean, there's a different lineup now whereby it will make it more possible to do acoustic stuff. So, I mean, I don't want to never say never kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's down to the band, but I think the way that they're producing new material and working together as a 6-piece now instead of a 5-piece could change that somewhat. But for me, that band, the core of it is the live experience, the energy and the connection with the audience. And they really give a shit about their fans as well. So actually, if they weren't doing something that involved the fans and was audience facing, I wouldn't be as behind it, if you know what I mean. I mean, I would do it for the band wanted us to do it, but it wouldn't be for me personally.
Yeah, because, with a band like that, like I say, you've got to kind of put quite a bit of funding and production behind a live stream that kind of replicates their actual live show. Yeah,
which is what happened with Wardruna. And I don't know if you saw the Behemoth live stream that they did during lockdown where they did it inside this insane church. It looked like literally the black metal Top of the Pops. It was absolutely outstanding. That's one of the best live streams I have seen. But I also know it cost a shit ton of money to do. But they did the right thing. Yeah. They really did the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely worked for them, I think, especially with their like aesthetic and branding of Behemoth and the band anyway.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. I was like, oh, this is brilliant. It's really good to watch it on the big telly.
What would you say, because obviously the music industry is like ever evolving and changing. From a label standpoint, what's kind of been some of the most biggest changes that you've experienced, not only in like signing new talent, but trying to break talent as well?
It's really hard to break talent now because there's so many bands out there. It's really hard to cut through the noise. And it's again, everything being digital is brilliant because it's easier to find people, but it's harder to find great people. I do find that quite frustrating. I think the good thing about that is with things like home studios and plugins being in a lot of cases open source, it's a lot of people have got more access to affordable music creation tools and techniques. So I do really like that. But I like stuff and I really do like a physical product and a physical connection. So I mean, the way that the world is going, physical will die, I think, unless I think we may run out of resources as well at some point. People are going on producing stuff. But I think that's quite hard. I think expectations due to reality TV programs in the music world have skewed what people think they should be doing and where they think they should be in their career really early on. I think expectations have gone through the roof because people have seen certain things working. I mean, it's one thing being a singer-songwriter. It's another thing being a metal artist, So I think I hate reality TV anyway. I just think it's hideously just awful. So I think that part of it all is it's not great. And if people are looking like sort of things like The Voice and the X Factor for like their inspiration, we've got a problem anyway there. Although I do love The Masked Singer, but that's because I really like the costumes.
I never watched it.
And everyone takes a laugh and takes a piss out for that, but I love it. I really, really enjoy it. It's really good. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's just really good. I mean, it's Saturday night telly. It is like no brain telly.
Right.
But it's just, if you just need something just to watch and let your brain dribble, it's a perfect thing. I'm just trying to think if there's been any more changes. I mean, the other thing I've seen is just the costs of everything going up. Touring costs is horrendous.
Yeah.
Because
Especially
thanks
like
to
Brexit.
and thanks to COVID is just awful.
Yeah.
And also the fact that loads of people left the industry. So we had people who were like outstanding, like sort of techs and like sort of sound guys, and they're all like, now they're carpenters or, they're plumbers and stuff like that. And they're making better money. Now it's really hard to get a van. It's really hard to get a bus. It's really hard to get trucking. It's really hard to get lighting. It's just everything's been really difficult. So that's horrendous. That part of it all I do not like. And like, the whole visas and like sort of carnets scenario. It's like the freedom of touring is just gone now. Touring used to be able to like sort of pick up your shit and then get into Europe like next day. Now it's like sort of 3 months turnaround. You've got to have a carnet sorted. It's long.
Crazy.
Hoping that's going to change.
Thanks for speaking with me. I do really appreciate it. Before I let you go, is there anything you want to say? Anything you want to plug?
Witch Fever, fabulous band. Album out on the 21st of October. Watch out for Hot Milk. They're also fantastic if you like the poppier end of the world. And yeah, hopefully there'll be new material from Bury Tomorrow coming soon.
Nice. I look forward to that.
Fabulous.
Thanks very much again for doing this.
Take care, Zach.
Yeah. Enjoy your evening. Bye.
See you. Bye.
And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider supporting the podcast in any way that you can. We have a Patreon where you can get access to each episode a week early, along with some other perks, a merch store, or you can leave a review wherever you're listening to this. You can also follow me on social media or subscribe to the newsletter where I'll send out each episode to you via email, along with regular playlists. All of this can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again for listening, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.